Welcome to Time Traveling Team, the weekly podcast where we review every story of Doctor Who right from the very beginning. I'm Paddy.
And I'm Tricia. In today's Rambling in the TARDIS, we're going to take a look at Ben and Polly. We'll be taking a look at their strengths and their weaknesses, and picking out what we think are their best and worst episodes.
We would also love to hear some of your thoughts about your favourite Ben and Polly moments. So in order to join the discussion, you can check us out at Time Teamp, that's TIMETEAMP, on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, or you can email us at timetravelingteamp@teamproductions.com. So, as always, we will be discussing the characters' high points, their low points, their best and worst moments. So Trish, how about you lead us off? And do you want to go with Ben first or Polly first?
Why don't we go in alphabetical order? Start with Ben.
Cool. Ben.
Ben.
Benjamin.
So, we've said before that sometimes we tend to finish on a negative, so why don't we do weaknesses first?
Cool, fair enough. So, do you want to go first or shall I go first?
I'll go first.
Cool.
My first note is, Scully. I mean, Ben. Though he did outgrow it eventually.
Eventually.
His skepticism hung around for a very long time and made him come across as a little bit of an idiot.
Yeah.
Just a smidge. You know?
Especially when you've seem to have a savant at judging people with you.
Yeah. Even the fact that they move from central London to Cornwall and he's still like, nope. It's like, what? And then obviously when the Doctor changed, we saw it again. It's like, dude, you watched it happen. Like, it literally happened before your eyes. Like, you saw it. So that, I think, the only reason why, because being skeptical isn't a bad thing. The only reason why I would class it as a weakness for Ben, because A, he does outgrow it, but also the reason why I consider it a weakness for Ben is because his skepticism is Scully level in the face of, it's Scully in the Ellermeyer flask at the end of season 1 where she's holding an alien fetus.
Yeah.
As to no, aliens don't exist. Or Scully from the Fight the Future movie, so the first and the best X-Files movie, where she was on an alien spaceship in Antarctica. She saw it take off and then later on denies that she ever saw it take off. They even make fun of it on the show that she denies that she ever saw it take off. So that's why it's a weakness, because it's too much.
Yeah.
His other weakness is that, and this is a weakness that stems off from one of his strengths that I'm sure we'll come back to, which is he can be a bit short-sighted in his defensiveness. And that has ramifications. So we said a particular thing for Ben is the safety of Polly, right? We'll get to that, I'm sure, when we get to his strengths, right? But the fact that he's constantly, what about Polly? It means that other people find him irritating. If you think about it in the War Machines, if you think about it in Power of the Daleks, because he keeps banging on about it, it makes it difficult for people to work with him.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. It gets better when Jamie comes along, because when it was what about Polly in The Underwater Menace, he trusted that Jamie could take care of her. Or look out for her is probably a better, because Polly can take care of herself, but Jamie can look out for her. So that I think it leaves him a bit short-sighted, and it means that people look at him differently, and they don't treat him as the reliable person that he is. It comes across like the only thing he thinks about in any situation is Polly, and that he can't see the big picture. So those would be my two weaknesses for Ben.
So yeah, I know I'd agree with the sculliness, all right, and the narrow, I won't say, short-sightedness as opposed to narrow-mindedness, or maybe just tunnel vision that he might get. I had another one, which is that when he gets frustrated, his temper gets the best of him, and he ends up acting against character. Prime example being the moon base, when he's having an argument with Jamie, over Jamie's capacity to be able to assist him. And then I think he kind of takes her on Polly, and he says, like, Polly, you stay here fighting Cybermen as men's work, despite the fact that you've seen that Polly can take care of herself. So I think he kind of just alienates himself for short periods of time, just when his temper gets the best of him.
Yeah, I did consider that particular incident when I was doing my weaknesses. The reason why I didn't include it is because, and maybe I'm wrong, and by all means please correct me if I am, I saw that as a one-off.
No, like, okay, so that's the prime example. But there are other, I think instances where, I think even back in the Highlanders when he was getting, no, granted that was extenuating circumstances, but his temper was kind of getting the best of him initially when Jamie and himself, it all comes back to Jamie. I blame Jamie on this one. He was kind of getting he's just frustration, or even like if you want to go to the power of the Daleks, when like the Doctor was being in his he was doing his very unique ways of kind of gathering information. It was just getting Jamie to kind of not Jamie, it was getting Ben really riled up, and it was like, dude, would you just calm the fuck down?
Yeah, I think possibly a reason why I didn't see it as a weakness is that he's so mellow compared to Stephen.
I suppose that's the thing. Like, if you take maybe Stephen out of the equation,
I'd probably stand out more.
But again, because I think, like, and we'll get into it, like, when we talked about it, like, the strength, I would assume. But after multiple stories where we didn't like Stephen, and we were vocal about that, having Ben come in and be such a breath of fresh air, that wasn't exactly Ian, but he had like, some cliff notes, but he was also his own thing. It just felt like a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Do we want to continue on the weaknesses side of things with Polly, or will we just do strengths for Ben and then go on to Polly herself?
I don't mind.
How about we get the nasty stuff out of the way first, and we go with weaknesses for Polly?
Cool. So I only have one weakness for Polly, right? Cool. And that isn't to say that Polly's like a Mary Sue type character, because she's not. She's a complex character. Mm-hmm. The weakness that I have for Polly is that, more so in the last couple of weeks, starting with the Underwater Menace, we had it in Macro Terror, and in some ways we kind of had it in this last story in the Faceless Ones as well, is she is reduced to the damsel in distress, and she doesn't get her clever follow through that we usually get.
No.
So we've said, like, one of the reasons why I would consider Polly to not be a Mary Sue is that she does scream her fucking head off, but usually she then follows through to think her way out of a situation or whatever. And towards the end, we got a number of stories where that didn't happen, or she had a screamy moment, she did a follow through, and then she's back to screamy moment again. It's like, why? Like that, particularly the Underwater Menace had that, like sort of uppy downy thing, and the Macro Terror is like, what the hell? Like, it was just screaming moment the whole fucking way through.
Yeah, because I think I'm in a very similar vein. I had that. I think depending on who she's with in a threatening situation, she has a tendency to join the, as like I like to call it, the lost the will to live brigade. Like, with Jamie, there was a whole thing. Oh, I can't go on, and there was the we didn't see it, thankfully, the fucking slapping incident, because it was removed. Again,
thank God.
Thank God. Fucking smart move on that producer's mindset. And then there was the Macro Terror, where she's very much like, I can't just push the door. I don't want to go further down this tunnel. I don't want to do, and like, it just seems to be a case of, are you only brave when Ben is in it? Because those instances happen when Ben isn't there. We
did kind of get a little bit of that. Maybe that's the case. Maybe Ben is her source of strength. Maybe that's what it is. Because we did get a little bit in the Faceless Ones. Because when she meets up with Jamie and the Doctor, and she tells him that she saw a dead body or whatever.
But what about Ben?
She's asking what about Ben, which is nice. because they kind of mirror that off each other, which I think is very sweet.
But again, I think it's only in threatening situations that this occurs, because.
But when they said like, "Oh, let's go back and look at the body," she doesn't want to go. She's like, "He tried to kill me," and it's when Jamie's like, "We'll protect you," that she goes, and that doesn't really fly with who we've seen up to now. But maybe it is the Ben thing. Maybe Ben is her source of strength, and when he's not there, she doesn't feel as safe.
But I just like to clarify, only when it comes to threatening situations, because there are times where she's by herself that she's incredibly capable.
Oh yeah. No, but I think in terms of when she's scared.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Definitely. Yeah. No. Yeah.
Like
when
deathly scared.
Yeah.
And she can't rely on Ben. That's a problem.
Yeah, and it really is, because like, for such an amazing character, that to have that be the weakness, it just kind of sucks a small bit.
Yeah, I would agree.
So we move on to the strengths.
Yes. So back to Mr. Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
You can't say he's not dedicated to his friends.
Absolutely not. No.
One in particular. We said it in our first story with him in the War Machines, and it's continued on right up until the very end. What about Polly? What about Polly? What about Polly?
I think if we were to look, like just actually, separate podcasting, like we only did our first Doctor podcast and a second Doctor podcast, we should kind of like second Doctor podcast. What about Polly? No.
The other thing with Ben is that, like, I agree with you. He was such a breath of fresh air after Stephen. But at the same time, he's still willing and perfectly able to jump in and get his hands dirty. Like, he fills that action man role without having, with the exception that you mentioned of Moonbase, without having to be the alpha.
Yeah.
Do you know? And without being overbearing and intimidating. And
as well, like the fact that he's a military character, while yes, he's the muscle of the group for a time, he's not a musclehead. No, which is great.
Yeah,
because we get that fantastic moment in the Moonbase Ten Planet. He didn't give me any other choice.
And that's something. So I wrote this down as a strength. I don't know if I'd count it as a strength or how you classify it is. But Ben is the character that up to now, and to be honest, out of most of the classic characters I've seen, the one other exception might be Ace. Mm-hmm. Ben is the one who I think has shown the mental struggles and ramifications of his actions the most. Yeah,
like we saw we see brief shades of it with Ian, like when he used Ixtos's momentum to fucking cart him over the side of the pyramid. There is that look on Ian's face of, Jesus, I just killed a guy. But then, unfortunately, that's not the way that the stories were being written at that stage, where it comes on like that the next adventure he's all hale and hearty, in the sense of there's no mental fatigue over the fact that he's taken a life. Now, as we said with Ian, he doesn't like to take lives, but he's not averse to taking them. Ben here, this is the first time where we actually see someone vocalize that torment or that guilt, and I loved it. Like, I was like going, this was a standout moment for Ben, and I was like, well, like, who knows, it might show up in a best of. But it was a great thing because he's a compassionate character, but he's also very contemplative of the actions he takes, and again, just complete breath of fresh air.
Yeah, I think like he's perfectly willing to jump into a fight, but that first killing really affected him. And even if they didn't mention it in any other episode ever, which they don't really, it doesn't really come up again. But like with Ian, it was a look. Yeah,
with Ben, it's a vocalization.
With Ben, it's the vocalizations, or because like it's the vocalization and the way he carries himself, and that whole bit is just so good. And we saw it again in the Macro Terror last week, where this internal struggle when he's brainwashed.
Yeah.
And again, we didn't really get that internal struggle quite the same way. We got a little bit with Polly, I think, in the War Machines. But we didn't get it with Dodo.
No.
Do you know, who really, like, I mean, Dodo was fully gone. Like,
I think with the other characters that have ever shown this type of stuff, Ben is the first person to actually vocalize it. Now, and again, the acting of those individuals was great, and we got to actually see that. But to hear it vocalized is a step above, and it's a step beyond, and it's actually really good to see. So I'm really glad that it was actually a military character that expressed that, as opposed to just regular Joe Soap.
Yeah, I think the way I describe it as a strength, probably the best way to consider it in terms of like strengths and weaknesses, is that even if it's only to himself, he admitted that something affected him. Yeah. Even if it was only to himself. Do you know? Which I thought was great.
No, absolutely. Like, and again, like, that's the type of character that you want to follow. Especially in this type of storytelling and in this franchise, you know? Yeah. So, shall we go on to Polly?
Indeed. What were your strengths for Polly? You can go first this time.
I think Polly would make a fantastic poker player. She's great at reading people, and as well as depending on the scenario, using their misconceptions of her against them. It's like, oh, I'm just good at making coffee. Fair enough. You stick around here. Yes, and I won't take in everything that you're saying. But it's great. Like, she's highly intelligent, as we saw. Like, that she's, what did you call it?
She's a polyglot.
Polyglot. Thank you very much. I was like polylingual, polydactyl. No, polydactyl. That's a multiple pterodactyl. She's a polyglot, which I thought was pretty cool. And she's at times very fearless, which is great. She's not afraid to get stuck in. And I think I would consider her very much a don't judge a book by its cover companion.
I'd agree. I agree with basically everything you said. I think the notes I have here is that she's a people person. Not only can she read people very well, she connects with people very well. So both in a sort of ingratiating herself to the enemy type thing and getting them to talk to her when they maybe shouldn't, but also just with people in general. And like we saw it, I mean, probably the two biggest examples are Ben and Jamie. Do you know, the way she got Ben out to come out of his shell, and you know, he's like, oh, I'm just gonna be a grumpy sailor. She's like, come on, like, whatever. Do you know what I mean? Had a big effect on him. The way she just accepted Jamie straight away, and they developed that bond between the two of them, and with the Doctor as well. Like, both Doc Bill and Doc Pat, she has this way of just connecting with people, where I don't know if it's her empathy or just because she's so open as a person. But it's great to see someone who connects so easily, because you kind of get the sense, and maybe it's just me, like, Barbara doesn't connect with people as well. Barbara was quite reserved.
Well, except when it came to
except when it came to Ian. But even with Ian, though, I mean, there are moments when it's Miss Wright and Mr. Chesterton. Their companionship and that grew over time, and we got to see that unfold when the trappings of their environment got removed.
Although there was that, you know, like, I would say maybe Genesis and Leon as well, where she let the guard down a small bit. True,
but like not on a day to day.
No, not to the same level. Not to the same level as Polly.
Not to the same level that Polly does. So I think, you know, with Polly, I think it's just such a different approach. Do you know? Like I said, she's very clever. She's not just some bimbo.
No, and again, like, at the time that this show came out, I would have considered her to be like a great role model for young women that wanted to get into this, you know, this show, or that, you know, like, you know, say for example, like, you know, there was the stigma. There might still be it, but not at the same amount. Stigma of being a nerd, you know.
Yeah.
And I think Polly is a great ambassador on a show where it's like, you know what, fuck it. You can like nerdy things, or you can like stuff that, like, you can like a nerdy thing and you'll actually be better for it. And I think that's the case with Polly. Polly showed that it's okay to be, you know, it's okay to be different, because that's how people misread you.
Yeah. the other thing is that, like, she doesn't give in either. Like, we've spoken, like, one of the weaknesses, I think the main weakness with Polly's character was how ill-written she was towards the end, by certain writers who purely saw her as the damsel in distress, which is not what she is.
No.
Because the strength that she has, that she doesn't give in. She has this great... It's very similar to Barbara, that she has this great well of strength within her.
Yes.
That, yeah, she'll scream her fucking head off. But then it's, okay, think my way out of this problem.
Yeah.
And she doesn't give in easily, do you know? With the exception of the handful of moments that I'm sure we'll get to when we talk about our worst episodes. So that's a great thing to see in a character like that, do you know? Because I think what it's misconstrued in, current fans looking backwards, it's probably misconstrued. I think a lot of that has to do with a lot of her episodes being missing as well. She's remembered as being a screamer, and that wasn't all she was at all.
No. And hopefully, like, the aim, like, well, one of the aims that we had when we started this podcast was for people that are interested but either they can't focus on the missing episodes, or they're like going back and watching older stuff isn't their bag. This podcast would hopefully get rid of those misconceptions of that character.
Yeah, and the last one I have is, obviously, we kind of joke that herself and Ben are Mulder and Scully, and she'd be the Mulder in that part, but she's also better than Mulder, Mulder's a bit too fucking accepting of unique situations, but she very quickly adapts to new situations. And she has that skill. Like, when the Doctor changed, she was a bit doubtful to beginning, but then she, because of her other strengths, she connected with him and was able to adapt and move on. Which is great, because you can only have one character being your skeptic. And Ben had that in spades. We couldn't have them both like that. It would be fucking horrific. So with Polly, I think the fact that she can adapt so quickly, partially because of her ability to read people and to read the situation, and the fact that she is paying attention all the time. Like, if we think about the moon base, she's like, well, what's their front cover made of? It looks like plastic, even though you're freaking the fuck. Like, every time she saw a Cyberman, she screamed her head off. But she also noticed that their front cover plate looks like it's made of plastic, which is, I think it's a great strength. And, it doesn't make her a Mary Sue. It makes her complex.
Yes.
Which I love, and I think that's the thing about Ben and Polly, and probably, forgive me, but like the thing that puts them slightly above Ian and Barbara is that I think Ben and Polly are, I know, that hurt to say, I think Ben and Polly are more complex. Because Ian and Barbara had a mold to fit, which was mom and dad, whereas Ben and Polly didn't have that mold to fit, so they were allowed to be more complex characters.
No, like, I'd agree, but like, as well, like, it's not even a thing of forgive me for saying, but it's like, no, it's just I suppose you could say it's a statement of fact. It doesn't take away from your enjoyment of the other two characters,
or my undying love and my dedication to them to the end of time.
Yeah, I can't wait to see like the tattoo of just like on the back a complete spread of the two of them.
I'm wearing that T-shirt again today, actually, that has Ian and Barbara on it. I don't know if you can see.
Is that just so you can assuage the guilt of what you just said? Is it?
Yeah. They will always be close to my heart. Literally.
Cool.
So, we've talked through what we think are the strengths and weaknesses for Polly and Ben, and at this point we really need to look a bit more specific, right? So, at this point we look at their episodes in particular. And you mentioned that Polly and Ben have, let me just double check, they have 9,
I think.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, they have 9 stories. So, not as many as some of our previous companions have had, but more than some others. I mean,
and when we said it on
Dodo
Monday
had
well,
like 5.
Yeah, and we said it on Monday as well. Like, the reason it feels so short is because they're the first companions to witness a regeneration. So there's 2 eras that they're in.
Yeah.
So you can kind of break it that way, you know?
Yeah. I'm actually just looking at our episode list, and they finished off the 20s and started the 30s. So, like,
Yeah.
because Pat's first episode was episode 30.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that they sort of got the arse end of the 20s and then into the 30s. So we'll continue with ending on a high note, right?
Yes,
So we're going to start on a bum note. So
I think we should do that from now on, because I think we ended like the first Doctor's rambling on a sour note. So it was just like, just give you all about the gunfighters.
yeah,
DVD still available?
yeah, yeah. I have a lot of Doctor Who DVDs. Most of them I'm perfectly happy to keep. That one though,
Perfectly happy not to keep.
Let me know.
Yeah.
We go with worst episodes.
Cool. So I have 3 per person. Now, will we do 3 to 1, or will we do 1 to 3?
So I have 2 for Ben, and I have 3 for Polly.
Cool.
And I think we say this every time we do this. We ask the same question. So it goes 3, 2, 1, with number 1 being the worst episode.
Yes.
So when you're reading them out, start with number 3.
Okay, cool. Fair enough. Right. Will we go alphabetically again?
Yeah.
Okay. My number 3 for Ben is the Faceless Ones.
Okay.
Because of everything that's there, he does fuck all in it. And it's just trying to take away from not the overall I suppose the experience of the story. He just does nothing, and it's disappointing. Except for the fact that, as you pointed out, that he's the only one to scatter.
Scatter by
Scatter. So
I shouldn't do that. It hurts my nose when I say it that way. I really shouldn't.
I'm pretty sure it hurts people's ears as well.
Probably. My apologies. I won't do it again.
Dogs in the surrounding area are just barking like crazy. Now, will I carry on my list, and then you?
Yeah, no, you do yours, okay. And then I'll do mine.
Cool. So my number 2 is actually Power of the Daleks. As I said, I think his skepticism was needed to balance out Polly's more optimistic side of things of reading the Doctor, because those questions did need to be asked. The only issue is that I think it went on way too long in that story, especially given that we know Polly is a very good judge of character and he trusts Polly. So why can't he trust her here?
Yeah, I get that.
And as we kind of go, this whole thing, what about Polly? What about Polly? What about Polly? And it's, again, there was a time when himself and the Doctor were hiding and they were trying to find out what's going on. And he hears Polly and he's up and he's banging into shit and he's just causing a ruckus. So I don't think that's a particularly good showing for Ben. And my number 1 is, and I'll put you this way, right? My stuff for Ben is kind of flimsy because I think he's a great character.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with number 1, and it's just because it annoyed me so fucking much, the moon base. Because for someone that has an otherwise great record, his comments towards Polly, because of his interaction with Jamie, I think it's, as we discussed, it's probably poor writing on behalf of Kit Pedler, who maybe wasn't familiar with the character. But if we're to keep it in context of the actual written story, I think it's a really shitty thing for Ben to do just because he's having it out with Jamie. And it's just very against type. It's just against everything that we've seen about Ben so far. And given it's a very stressful scenario, I would have thought Ben would have kept his head a small bit better.
Yeah.
Because they're effectively all they're not separate. Unlike other stories, they're not separated. They're all in the same installation. They can all help each other.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, so that's why I would classify this as Ben's worst showing.
So for me, I only have 2. I'm going to put a caveat though.
Okay.
Right. So I have 2 for worst and I have 3 for best, because usually we do 3. 3's are standard, right? Power, if I had to rank everyone in order, so if we're doing 8 and 9 are the two that I've listed here.
Yeah.
Power would be number 7.
Yeah.
However, I couldn't bring myself to call it a worst episode. It's probably his least good middling episode. But I couldn't bring myself to title it worst.
No, but like we've done that before. Like I was going back through some of the old ramblings. I mean, like for fuck's sake, like we had like 2 for Barbara, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, with Ben, just put a caveat on why I don't mention Power, because like I mentioned in his weaknesses, his Scully-esque nature and how that goes a bit far. It didn't really bother me so much in Power that I would consider it a worst showing. You know, probably like the bottom of the middle pack.
Yeah.
But not in the worst category.
Yeah. But then again, like we use 3 because of 3 is a nice kind of a number to do this type of thing. It's not like a target to hit. It's just an allotment. We wouldn't go over 3.
Yeah. Also, when we first did this, Paddy did 3 the first time, and I just have copied him ever since.
Yeah. Plus, like like Jesus, if that's the case, we would have like Stephen would have been what?
All of them.
Yeah.
All of them.
With the exception of possibly
the chase.
What was it? The chase. But anyway, stop talking about Stephen. He's gone.
He's been gone for ages.
Yeah. Cool.
He's been gone for over a year in Showtime, and I'm still fucking going out about him.
Cool.
Anyway, so
like
the other two, the other 2 that I have are the same 2 that you have, but they're not in the same order.
Ah, okay.
So Moonbase is my second worst because of his comment to Polly.
Yeah.
But it's only his comment to Polly that I have issue with. His comments to Jamie, in the context of they're going up against the Cybermen and Ben had to kill one of them before, that we know really affected him. His comments to Jamie, while not presented well, I still feel are justified.
But see, that's the thing, is that he's in the right. He's just being a complete dick about it.
But I think it's understandable that his emotions are on edge when you consider what happened the last time he met the Cybermen, right? His statement to Polly, though, is where I think the big issue lies. Because had it just been that falling out with Jamie, I probably wouldn't mind quite as much, right? Because Ben was right. And, you know, call a spade a spade. Jamie didn't help fucking diffuse that situation either. Jamie rose to it, and Ben rose back. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can't expect the man to be completely in control all the time when you have someone yelling at you saying that they can help. So the reason why it goes on the worst, though, is because of the interaction with Polly. And you know that if he hadn't just had an argument with Ben or with Jamie, and if his emotions weren't already running high, that he would have said to Polly, hey, I think you should stay here where it's safer. And that would have been all he said.
So something a bit more tactful.
Yeah, the only reason why he said this is meant, in my opinion, right? And, you know, Annika Wills and Fraser Hines, if you ever listen to this, maybe you can tell me if I'm wrong. I think the only reason why he said what he said in the way that he said it is because he was already pissed. He'd already had this confrontation with Jamie, and then Polly wants to go as well, and he's like, are you fucking serious? Like, this isn't a joke. This isn't something simple. These things are not human. This is not an easy thing to do. But, you know, if I can let him slide a little bit for inevitably losing his temper once, the fact that he then turned that on Polly, no, because it becomes very alpha male kind of sexist, you know, thing. And while I would never accuse Ben of this ever, it's the type of behavior you see with abusive relationships, you know, where you've someone comes home angry because of something that happened at work and they take it out on their loved ones. And that's essentially what he was doing. He couldn't get Jamie to stay behind and he took it out on Polly.
Yeah.
I don't think he meant it. I would have liked it if we'd gotten an apology in the episode. The reason though why I ranked that number 2 is because he was very strong for the rest of that story. And we discussed this at the time. I thought the Moonbase, he was a very strong character. With that exception in the middle. But it's such a big exception that it takes what is a very strong showing that should be, middle of the pack, of the 9. Like, it should be up in the middle or, like, up in the high rankings of the 9. And it plummets
yeah.
In my opinion, down to 8. In your opinion, down to 9. The one that I have at the very bottom, though, is the Faceless Ones. Because I go back to my...
comments from the other night.
My comments before, which is, if you take him out of the story, what in the plot changes? Nothing.
We don't get the photo booth moment. That's it.
The photo booth doesn't contribute to the plot.
No, but I'm not even saying it's plot contribution. It's just a funny moment. We don't even get that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Like the photo booth was funny. That that's fine, but it doesn't contribute to the plot. He didn't do anything. He wandered around by himself, and then he got captured, and that was it. And for me, it's just poor use of Ben. Like, it's funny to see the Doctor and Jamie running around a contemporary airport on their own. It's funny to see it. Do you know what I mean? But this again. We have people in authority positions. Ben works really well at bridging the gap with the authority figures and stuff like that, and we didn't get to see any of that. So I think it's his worst episode because he did fuck all in it.
Yeah.
He did nothing to drive the plot. You could have almost, like, had him scatter at the start and just not find them till the end. and it would have been exactly the same. It would have been exactly the same. So for me, it was his worst episode. And I think the only reason why Moonbase didn't plummet the whole way to the bottom of the stack is because he did contribute heavily in that story.
Moments in it, yeah. No, like I can see.
Very strong moments.
I think at least we're in like the same mindset as to what constitutes a fucking bad story for Ben. But yeah, no, like I think we're seeing each other's points alright, and we're the only kind of variation is just the ranking of those points. Yeah. Cool. So now on to Polly.
Yeah. So I'll go first with this time with Polly. So you may have the same ones I have. I have 3.
Okay.
And all for fundamentally the same reason.
Cool.
Which are the Faceless Ones, the Underwater Menace, and the Macro Terror.
I have them in that exact same order.
So why don't we just discuss them back and forth, right? So the Faceless Ones, we just discussed this on Monday, right?
Yeah.
But she does have a Perils of Polly type thing where she gets captured. But she kickstarts the plot. Where I think it ranks low for her is she kickstarts the plot, but then she has her perils moment and she has no recovery.
No.
The thing with Polly is that when she has a peril moment, what makes Polly great is she always, well, other than these 3 stories, she has a good recovery out of it. And we didn't get the recovery moment for Polly.
No, we didn't.
And that for me is why it's number 7 overall.
Yeah. No, like I'd agree. It's like, even when like she's, with Spencer and Blade, and it's just that whole thing, like, we have ways of dealing with you. There isn't even like a sort of a, at least try and kick him in the fucking shins type thing. And again, because it's the departure story, that's what pisses me off the most about it.
Yeah.
It's like they have no impact. They have like 0 fucking impact in the story, and that pisses me off so much. What is it about the writing characters out of the show that you can't? It's like just do like a justifiable job. Yeah,
like the reason why this is in the sort of 3rd worst position rather than, for me, it was the worst one for Ben.
Yeah, because at least she has the benefit of adding something.
She has
to
the
plot.
benefit of the plot. And Ben didn't.
Ben has no plot.
Nope.
Then we have his name.
Yeah. Then we have the Underwater Menace, or as you called it at the time, the Tale of Two Pollies.
Yes, and the reason that sits in the number 2 position for me is because of it's a Tale of Two Pollies.
Yeah, it's almost worse. This is so weird, right? So we're giving out. So we're saying, the Faceless Ones, she had her plot moment, and then she had her perils moment, and she didn't get her recovery. In this, we have plot, peril, recovery, peril again.
Yes.
I lost the will to live.
Yeah.
And it's like, what was with that bit at the end? If you took out the bit at the end, these two would probably be in joint position, or actually maybe even Faceless Ones would be lower, and Underwater Menace would be slightly higher. But because it was this fucking uppy downy shit.
Yeah. And it was so frustrating because we had just come off. We had that fantastic run of 5 stories.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh no, I don't want to see this.
Yeah. Like, is that the same reason why you'd put it at the number 2 position over Faceless?
Yeah, no, in the sense of like she has her moments to shine, but then unfortunately she's back to the damsel in distress, and it's just so fucking frustrating that she ends the story as a damsel in distress.
Yeah. Which isn't who Polly is, so to go out on that note fucking sucks. Also, I think Faceless had the recovery as well of, at least the departure scene was good.
Yeah.
You know, whatever. Macra Terror.
Cool. Crabfest.
It is a complete Perils of Polly story. There is no recovery whatsoever.
No.
And to be honest, I would again ask the question, if
why?
you removed her from the story, what changes?
Nothing.
No, because Ben denied seeing the Macra anyway.
Yeah. Like,
it didn't snap him out of it,
maybe
and he denied seeing it.
Maybe to get across just how dangerous they are to the audience, but then again, any one of the colonists could have provided that.
Yeah. There would have been an even better reveal for Jamie in the tunnel later.
Yeah. But like, there's no, as I've heard, not even a single moment of awesomeness to give her some credibility.
No.
It's just the whole time.
Yeah, which is, it's such a fucking.
Do you know what's really weird? It's like almost like Samson. When she cut her hair, she lost all her strength.
So she magically regrew it.
Exactly.
for the Faceless Ones.
And as a result, did fuck all because she wasn't used to having hair.
Well, no, because she started the plot, but then she got shipped off into a plane.
Yeah.
Do anything else. Yeah, no, Macra for Polly was just, it was so bad. It was so bad.
Yep.
And do you know what's actually upsetting looking at it?
What?
Is you have Macra Terror and the Faceless Ones, so 2 of our 3 bottom picks, have gotten the animated
Steelbook treatment.
So if you only watch that, if you only watch the ones that are available on DVD that have been animated, and if you buy into the, like these ones are like special editions and they're out in Blu-ray, because obviously some of these stories have been around on DVD for a while, or ones with Hartnell and stuff like that. But like if you only watched the like special edition ones, she doesn't come across very strongly at all.
No, Power of the Daleks, and then that's not even her story.
Yeah, it's such a kick in the teeth to the character, do you know?
Reanimate Marco Polo and the Highlanders, please.
Yeah, and the Crusades.
And the Crusades, basically all Hartnell.
Yeah, I'm missing Ian and Barbara slots on my shelf, and I need them back, please.
And not even Julian Glover doing the linking narration is enough to
although I will still say, right, that Will Trish talk about Ian and Barbara in every single rambling? Probably. Probably will. Right?
Until a certain someone comes along.
I'll probably still mention them.
Yeah.
I'm gonna once again plug it because it's great, which is the Target novelization of the Crusades. Fucking fantastic.
She's not getting commission for this, people, so it's okay.
No, but I did buy it for Paddy for Christmas.
Yes, and it was awesome. Thank you.
Anyway, back to Ben and Polly.
Yes. And how about we go on to the high points?
Yeah, so let's go through their best episodes because, like, for 9 stories,
Mm-hmm.
I kind of struggled with picking my best because there was so many. Unlike Dodo, where I was literally going, are there any? And I think I even included the massacre in Dodo's best stories.
You did. Like, for 5 minutes of fucking television, you included as a best of moment. Yeah. So, seeing as how I went first the last time on Ben G, how about you go first?
Cool. So my best episodes for Ben, going 3, 2, 1.
Mm-hmm.
War Machines,
Yeah.
Macro Terror,
Mm-hmm.
and 10th Planet.
I've got 2 of those 3.
Cool.
And 2 of them are in the exact same position.
Cool. So I'll just ask you, which 2 are they?
War Machines and 10th Planet.
Okay, cool. So why don't we discuss War Machines, I'll discuss Macra, you discuss what you'd have there,
Mm-hmm.
and then we'll discuss 10th Planet. So, for War Machines, it's such a fantastic character introduction.
It's
so brilliant.
It's amazing. He is great in it. Like, his dour sailor at the start, and immediately it's like he's investigating the warehouse, he's trying to get stuck in, he's concerned for Polly.
He developed a good relationship with the Doctor.
Yeah, that's it. He becomes like he investigates, and the Doctor trusts him to investigate because the Doctor gets a good read on him, and that's because Ben is such a really good character. And even like when they capture the War Machine, and Ben is the one that offers to, set up the trap, and like the Doctor's know that going, I've got to be the one to go in and take a look at it. Ben is not afraid to get stuck in, and his time when he's even caught inside the warehouse is great. He's just, as you said, like, what a fantastic introduction to a new companion.
Yeah, definitely. I think the thing about the War Machines is it tells you everything you need to know about Ben.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know? We get things explored in more detail later on.
Mm-hmm.
But only one other story adds something that we don't see in 10th Planet. Or we don't see in War Machines, and that's in 10th Planet.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think War Machines, fantastic character introduction. Like, 1000%. So, next I had Macra Terror. What did you have?
I had the Highlanders.
Okay. Why don't you go first?
Okay, so, no, I didn't pick the Macro Terror because of the simple reason is that it's a fantastic Michael Craze performance. But Ben is under mind control. So I base my picks on Ben in complete control of his own faculties the whole way throughout.
Okay.
So I don't, like, when they're mind controlled, I don't classify that as a best moment for the character because they're under influence of something evil. But not to say that it's not like a fantastic, like, showing for the character. Again, it comes down to Michael Craze's great performance of that tortured look, So I put on the Highlanders because, yes, he's a bit ignorant at the start of things, in terms of, as we discussed, about the whole way that he acknowledges the history of Scotland and England. But at the end of the very first episode, he's citing that you cannot treat prisoners of war this way. Even though he's in the middle of a prison full of Scots that would hate him because just simply for the sound of his accent, he's trying his best to get them out. He's not afraid to risk his life for the prisoners because it's the right thing to do. He has that thing where he takes on Trask, and he doesn't have any weapon, and he's like he may not be as good a sword fighter as Trask is, but he's not afraid to stand up to him. And after a while, like, he has a really good interaction with Jamie, and like they become like the sort of they get the roots of the duo that they would become. So I think it's a really good showing for Ben in that one.
Cool. I would agree with everything you said on that. Yeah. I would have had the Highlanders at my number 4.
Yeah.
The reason why I picked Macra Terror for number 2, and I did struggle between including the Highlanders, and I don't know if part of the reason why it's not there is because it's a missing episode. Maybe if I'd seen his performance, I may have assessed it differently. Because while I enjoy the missing episodes more now, I do still struggle with them a little bit, and we've discussed that before.
Yeah, like it is possible to do it depending on the quality of what the guys at Loose Cannon have been able to provide us with.
Yeah.
Thank you once again for all your efforts.
Yeah, definitely. Like, and again, that's nothing against Loose Cannon, it's just me. Yeah. It's very hard for me to watch something that has descriptions and no subtitles, because I don't know why I rely so much on subtitles. Like, my hearing is perfect, but I just watch everything with subtitles on by default. I don't know why. But the reason why I picked Macra Terror is, you are correct. Ben is not in control of his faculties for pretty much all of the story of what's in the animated version.
About 2/3 of it.
Of what's in the animated version. Do you know what I mean? Because the animated version removed
certain aspects. Yeah.
Certain aspects of it. But the reason why I think it's a great story for Ben is because we get to see that struggle. Because while Michael Craze plays it exceptionally well, it is Ben the character that's struggling.
Yeah.
And we get to see the moments where he's fighting it, or he doesn't know what he's fighting, but he knows it's wrong. Do you know? And I just thought it was fantastic. I thought it was brilliant. It brought in, it explored so much the thing that I really, really liked about 10th Planet.
Yeah.
Which is the
guilt for what he has done or what he is doing.
The guilt and I don't know what the right word is. I'm trying to find the right word for it. The
remorse?
Vulnerability.
Okay.
The vulnerability that Ben has, I think, comes across really well in Macra Terror. And I think one of the reasons why it comes across so strongly is, you know, Ben has been the action man, the strong one standing up, and he's the one that got taken out. Do you know?
Yeah.
And for me, it's just such an amazing performance and portrayal of just the conflictions, the conflict that exists within Ben. Because it also kind of, in some ways, and we kind of discussed this a little bit, like Ben, when he was under mind control, we said, you know, a lot of that could be what Ben is like when he's on duty.
Yeah.
And so it also kind of gives an insight into, like, what if there was a story of Ben on ship and he's trying to balance his duty versus what he knows is right.
And I think Macra probably takes, again, like you with Highlanders, it probably takes my number 4 spot. But it's just, I wanted to pick a story where, and not to do anything against Ben and Michael's performance in that story. It's just, I wanted to have like a representation for the character completely in control the whole time, and showing them at their best where there's no conflict, you know.
Yeah, and that works too.
Yeah, but again, like Macra is, again, we don't agree with some of the stuff that was done for the DVD release, but if you're a Ben fan, check it out.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, like,
if you're a Polly fan, stay away from it.
I wouldn't even put it in the sense of like the Massacre and what we said with Stephen. Like, if you're a Stephen fan, definitely watch the Massacre. If you're a Ben fan, definitely watch Macra Terror.
Yeah,
it's such an amazing insight into him. It's brilliant. And that brings us to 10th Planet,
yes,
which we both picked as Ben's standout performance.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't you go first on that one?
Look, we've used the 10th Planet as a linchpin for any discussion when it comes to Ben. that moment when he says he gave me no choice, that's when you knew that Ben Jackson was a companion that was different to your perceptions of what a military type character would be in Doctor Who. It's, again, as I said, he's the muscle of the group, but he's not a musclehead. He is very rational. He's a human being.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like my brother's in the military, okay? My brother's in the army. And he's served overseas as part of peacekeeping missions in hostile areas. And one thing I'm very reluctant to ask him is, has he ever been forced to fire his weapon? Because, like, if he has, I don't want to fucking make him revisit that experience. And I think Ben shows that some movies and TV shows do it they have the stereotypes of like gung-ho soldiers. Ben is the opposite end of that spectrum, where it's like, I want to do my duty for Queen and country. Don't necessarily want to have to fucking hurt someone while I'm doing it.
Yeah, I think one of the things I like about this, right, is we do get to see military Ben in 10th Planet.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Able to see Ben Jackson.
Yeah. But the thing is that, like, he's told, well, you're AWOL. Why aren't you? And you can tell that he's kind of like, fuck, I am, like. Do you know, like, he's not, like, I think when you have enlisted versus officers, there's really, with the exception of probably Miles O'Brien, there's usually two camps for both. Okay, so for in most media, we'll exclude Star Trek because they're different, but in popular media, so like in military procedurals and things like that, you have, and even the stories that we've seen so far, you have the enlisted who are the sergeant, the fucking hard ass who'll fucking write you like there's no tomorrow, and it's constantly like, what did you call me, and like all this type of thing, right? And then often in fictional media we get the other end of the spectrum as well, which is the enlisted idiot. Like the guy who couldn't ever be an officer, do you know?
Yeah.
He became a sailor because do you know what I mean? And I suppose there is the third category, I think, with enlisted as well, which is the enlisted man who knows more than the officer.
Yeah.
I think Ben will eventually become the enlisted man who knows more than the officer.
I see Ben being the Benton of the Navy.
Yeah, but actually even more capable, I think.
Oh,
like Benton's great, and we'll get to Benton in a while, but I think Ben is very much a highly capable sailor, and I have a funny feeling the only reason why Ben isn't an officer is because he couldn't afford it. He had no choice but to enlist. Because either he couldn't afford a university education, or because of his class, he became a sailor as opposed to an officer.
Yeah.
But we see in 10th Planet him filling into that role, and we see how he can be a bridge for the Doctor with people of power and with military type structures and stuff like that. We also see, which I love, and we mentioned it at the time, how he truly sees Polly. Do you know? Because there's that controversial moment where he's like, Polly, put the kettle on. And people see it as looking down on her or treating her like the tea lady, whereas actually he's like, no, Polly, like, you're a people person, work the room. Do what you did for me. Yeah. In the War Machines. And that's great. And of course we get that amazing conflict with when he takes out the Cybermen, which is just, it's just so great, because it shows that he's not just a gung-ho, I joined the military because I want to release
shooty,
some
boom, boom.
fucking pent up frustrations I have, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
Overall, it's just, it's so good. It's so good.
Mm-hmm.
It's so good. Yeah.
Cool. So,
I'm really gonna miss Ben now that we've gone through all of his stuff.
but that's the sign of a good companion. You fucking hate to see them leave.
Yeah, but like, similar to Polly, like his last few stories, they've been up and down. You know, Moonbase underwater was kind of fine, and then you got, it's just whatever. But he has such strong stories, and he's such a strong, complex character.
Yeah.
Which brings us over to our other complex character, which is Polly. So why don't you do your 3, 2, 1 for Polly?
Cool. So for Polly, the polyglot, I have the Smugglers, the 10 Planet, and the Highlanders.
I have 2 of those, one of which is in the same position.
Cool. So what do we got?
So Highlanders is in the same position for me.
Okay, fair enough. So what way do you want to work this?
So why don't you do your 3, 2, I'll do my 3, 2, and then we'll discuss the Highlanders.
So I picked the Smugglers because I genuinely think Polly is fantastic in that story. Straight away, she's the Mulder of the group. She's very kind of accepting as to what's going on, which is, it's great. When they get imprisoned, she's using her knowledge of the time to come up with a really very clever escape plan. We're the apprentices of a very powerful warlock, and ooh, I thought that was fucking great. I would have loved to have seen that in surviving footage. And then, yes, we do get our very first kind of moment of Polly in peril when the 2 pirates are in the cave. Doesn't stop her from fucking jumping into the action and jumping on that guy's back to help Ben,
Or biting. Did she bite his hand as well?
I think she bit him or something like that. And I was like, why couldn't she have done that in the Macra Terror? Like when Zaroff was taking on Jamie. Why not do the...
I was going to say, because it's a big giant crab, Fatty. I know that you can eat crabs, but like...
Sorry, no, did I say Macra Terror? I meant Underwater Menace.
You said Macroterra.
Sorry, look, they're both got something to do with the fucking sea, okay? There's a crab, it's underwater.
I was imagining Polly trying to bite into the crab claw and going, this isn't like crab claws I get in a restaurant.
Could be like the Monty Python sketch where, like, the Eat Blancmanges that just want to play tennis. But like, no, like, why couldn't you have done that in the Underwater Menace? Exact same scenario. So I think that's for a first trip outing. It's a great performance from Polly. Then we have the 10 Planet, which this was definitely kind of a thing where it's like, yeah, do not judge this lady. Like, she's not a blonde bimbo. No. She's incredibly perceptive. She's very disarming. Very much like the way that the second Doctor is in certain scenarios. He's very disarming. He lets you get your guard down. I think that's why I said she'd be a great poker player or a fantastic spy. Like, so it was really, really good. I really enjoyed her in it. I don't know what more I can say that we haven't already said throughout the course of this entire fucking rambling. So what are your 3, 2?
Yeah, so mine is 10th Planet, which I'll touch on for a second. The War Machines and the Highlanders.
War Machine, she's great in. Again, for the same reason I didn't pick Ben for Macra, I didn't pick Polly for this one.
Okay. I'll explain why I did, right?
Yeah.
10th Planet, we've discussed 10th Planet ad nauseum, right?
She makes coffee, she fucking suckers people in, she's great.
Yeah. 10th Planet, Polly, it's Polly at her best. Because Polly using all of the skills that she has. We see it kind of in the Moonbase as well. And I'll be honest, I was kind of conflicted between the 2 of which one to pick. But unfortunately, because the Moonbase had the 2 squeaky moments and her not saying, no, fuck it, there was a Cyberman, we're going to go look for him or whatever. Because she was confined to the infirmary for so long, that's why 10th Planet took the post. Out of those 2, because I was conflicted between picking one of the 2 of them. But it's Polly at her best, using her people skills to her advantage, and definitely reading the room of how people see her and using that and being like, no, you think I'm this, I'm not. And the way she stands up to the Cybermen, the way she speaks to the Cybermen, it's amazing. 10th Planet is a fantastic story. And Polly and Ben are fantastic in it.
Yeah, because like I think I gave it a 4 and you give it a 4.5.
Yeah.
So like if we give something a 4, then it's a definite fucking must watch.
Oh yeah. War Machines. Why did I include the War Machines and you didn't? So, yes, Polly gets brainwashed in the War Machines. However, I still think, similar to Ben, the War Machines is a fantastic introduction to that character.
Oh, and like I'm not disputing that.
Because again, we get everything we need to know about Polly, including one of the things that I wrote down as a strength is that she does not give in. The big difference for me between Polly being brainwashed and Ben is Polly wasn't 100%
Brainwashed.
under control. Ben had people constantly telling him. Polly had Ben, but then he stopped trying to combat her on it. Whereas Ben had conversations with the doctor, he had Polly and the incident with the Macra. Like, Ben had bigger ways of knocking him out of it than Polly did. Whereas Polly, you know, if you're comparing Polly and Dodo, big difference between the two.
Oh, huge difference.
Also with the War Machines, we got Polly the people person in her interactions with Ben, in her interactions with the doctor. Do you know, like, they get along really, really well right out the gate. And we get an understanding of, like, Polly isn't just the secretary, she's Professor Brett's assistant. And, you know, clearly people think very highly of her. Like, when she's sent to the guy's office who helped with the investigation, I've forgotten his name. You know, there's no, like, why would he say, it's like, oh, okay, cool, you know, go off and do your thing.
Oh, Sir Charles. Yeah, Sir Charles.
Yeah. I think, again, it's another fantastic introduction to someone who's going to be a very complex character.
Yeah.
Do you know? And, like, the way she pulls Ben along, do you know, that, like, she doesn't give him a choice. She's just like, no, you're my friend now, get over it.
I again kind of I toyed with the idea of putting this in the top 3, but it was just I wanted the but again I completely agree with the whole strength of character. Like, she's not giving in, but it was just like there is that period of time where she's under the influence of, or like she's not working on the side of the angels.
Yeah.
So like that's why I just went for pure angels, you know. But like no, like again, like fuck it, like we fell in love with Ben and Polly nearly straight away.
Yeah.
And it's because of the War Machines and their stupid smoke blowing fucking. What does it do?
We loved Ben and Polly. We loved the Doctor in it.
Yeah.
We didn't love the War Machines, and we didn't love Dodo.
No, we didn't love how Dodo was treated. Not that we didn't love Dodo.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. So our best episode for I think we kind of agreed that this was going to be the best episode back when we talked about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like,
and obviously I think you tipped your hand about the time because I hadn't seen anything that came after it and you had.
Yeah.
Which is the Highlanders.
Yeah,
it's just
like, again, like Ben kind of starts off a small bit ignorant as to the fucking scenario that they find themselves in, and she does have that Polly in peril moment at the very end of the first episode where person above her with a knife. And I remember I made the comment where I was like, look, fucking last person you saw was Kirsty with a knife. Logically, person above you should be Kirsty with a knife. But
I don't see that as a logical deduction at all.
Well, he hadn't really gone far, like, so, but look, that's how my brain works, okay? Yeah. Leave me alone. But everything after the first episode is just fucking... I'd watch a solo spin-off of fucking Polly doing a quantum leap, going in, fucking righting the wrongs, you know, hoping the next leap will bring her home, you know?
Yeah, for me, like, even the first episode, like, for me, the first episode wasn't really a write-off of amazingness because she had, you know, we need to do a distraction. Come on. Like she was constantly pulling Kirsty, whatever her name was. Kirsty, she was constantly being like, no, we have to do this. And like, right from the offset, like, you know, they go to, did they go to get water or something?
They go to get water for the Laird, yeah.
They go to get water, and as soon as they realise what's happening on the way back, Polly's instantly, we gotta do something. She hasn't a fuck notion what's happening. She's in a period of history she's clearly not very familiar with. But she's still straight into it, you know? And, you know, at the end of the episode, there's a Polly in peril moment. It's a Polly in peril moment if Polly fell down a hole.
Yeah.
It's nothing compared to the Polly in peril moments we get later. She fell down a hole.
I'm not going to discount the entirety of the first episode. I would just say that it really fucking hits.
Oh, it hits its stride.
Yeah, from
like
from
in the next episode.
Yeah.
And really, when your man fell down the hole as well.
Oh, Algernon Finch.
Algernon. Because the way she plays him is just, it's a masterstroke. It's so good. Because again, it's using what people see against them. It's fantastic.
She's absolutely great. She was so good in this story. It was I would watch Secret Agent Polly in various historical periods the whole time.
So again, you know, Annika, if you're listening, Fraser, if you're listening, BBC, if you ever hear this, please animate the Highlanders.
Yes,
please make it easier for people to watch it. Because it's just, it's amazing. It's fantastic. Cool.
I think after Monday's disparity in the scores, not by a huge amount, I think we're kind of in the same bracket in relation to everything here again.
The thing that I find really interesting, so yeah, our scores recently have been a bit off, and I've been scoring higher than you, which is so rare.
Yeah.
The thing I find interesting about this actually is Ben and Polly's strongest episodes, with the exception of Macra Terror for me and The Savages for you. Yeah. They both have the best episodes. They're the exact same.
As in scores wise, is it?
No, but as in War Machines.
You said The Savages. Do you mean The Smugglers?
Yeah, but Smugglers, yeah. So with the exception of Smugglers for you, Macra for me, for Ben, and then War Machines, and no, what did you have for Ben? What was your?
I had for Ben.
Highlanders. Highlanders, and yeah. So I didn't have the Highlanders for Ben, but you did. And it's their best episodes are the ones that each. You know what I mean?
Yes.
They both had 10 Planet and War Machines. There we go.
Yeah, exactly.
And you gave Ben the Highlanders and I didn't, so whatever. Point is, Ben and Polly are great.
They really are.
And the stories they're in together, where they're both strong, are fantastic stories. I think after Ian and Barbara's departure,
yeah,
I think if you look at a story where Polly is done well and Ben is done well, that is a fucking fantastic story. Stories where one of them isn't done as well, the whole story just doesn't work. No. As strongly, do you know? Yeah. Because Faceless Ones and Moonbase, we had the same. Macro, Underwater, Menace, and Faceless Ones, we had the same. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, you know, before we finish off, and we do have to finish up soon because we've been talking for a while. What are your final thoughts on Ben and Polly? And on Ben and Polly, the duo.
So they're not going to be as good as the OG duo. They're not. No. But they're a great fucking duo. My thoughts. So as I said, this is my first time coming back to a lot of these stories in a very long time. My perception of these characters have changed, rather from them being, yeah, you know what, they're good companions, to they're great companions. They have some exceptional moments and some exceptional stories. It just that in such a short space of time, they had such a rocky roller coaster, especially towards the end of their thing. But I think that these are companions that you could definitely recommend going, oh, you know what, fuck it, you should go watch this story. you should go watch. And the good thing about it is that it also really strengthens the whole thing of you can go back beyond Pertwee. Because a lot of I see again a lot of people saying, "Oh, I want to start classic. Where should I start?" Oh, start with either John Pertwee's era because it's the first one where everything is there,
and in colour,
or start with Tom Baker because he's the most famous. The more positive characters and more positive companions that we get in the Hartnell and specifically Troughton era, because the Troughton era there's so much of it missing. And we've talked about the amazing performances of Michael Craze and Annika Wills, and even if you just sit and watch the loose cannon stuff, their performances draw you in.
Yeah, I would agree 110%. When we first started doing this podcast, and when we got to the chase, I said I was entering unknown territory at that point. Because the way I watched Doctor Who, and to be honest, the way I watch Doctor Who now, like if I watch episodes out of order, shock horror, which I did a little bit over Christmas, I tend to watch by companion. Just some people watch a Doctor's run, I watch a companion's run, because that's how I got into it. So like I got into Classic Who by watching Sarah Jane. I've said that before. Over Christmas and New Year's, I watched Ace's run, and I watched I rewatched Liz Shaw's run. I didn't watch all of Pertwee. I didn't watch all of Seven, all of Sylvester McCoy, because I like watching companions. And I gave up watching after Ian and Barbara left of the black and white stuff because so much of it was missing, and the companions didn't interest me. Like Vicky didn't interest me a whole lot, and so I didn't keep on doing it. And I can honestly say, like, if you're someone like me where maybe you don't want to watch an entire Doctor's run and you watch by companion, watch Ben and Polly's run.
Yeah, no.
Starting with the War Machines, finishing with the Faceless ones. Yeah, there's one or two dodgy ones in the middle, but depending on your preferences, they may not have bothered you the same way they bothered me and Paddy.
Yeah.
They are a great introductory companion set. And if you're a shipper, they're also a really cute companion set, So yeah, I think, it was such a relief to get to them. And I'm so glad that I enjoyed them the way I did, because it was lagging there for a while, and I was like, oh my god, we have years before we get to like people that I know and love again.
But you see, the other flip side of this, and not to take away anything from Ben and Polly, by doing this, your love of Hartnell, his run has...
Yeah, and like I'll say something. This rambling isn't meant to be about that, but it's a rambling, and that's the whole point. I've enjoyed Patrick Troughton up to now. In my opinion, he still has nothing on Bill. Yeah. In my opinion, I know some people, like I know Paul from Half Measures, he said that Troughton is his favourite. To me, Troughton is very good, but his Doctor has nothing on Bill for me at the moment, which is why, like you and I said, like, oh, will me watching them in order and me falling in love with Bill's Doctor so much change how I originally ranked my Doctors? And to be honest, I mean, maybe. Everyone says that Troughton... I mean, a lot of people say that Troughton's better, that he's easier to get into than Bill was. I miss Bill.
Yeah, in a contest of two people, Patrick Troughton is coming in second so far.
Yes.
But again, not to take away anything from Patrick Troughton's run.
No, oh god, no.
Yeah, no. But I think one thing we're trying to get across is in this particular episode is that we would like to thank, and I suppose like we've done it as well for other companions, maybe not one or two of them, but we would definitely like to thank Annika Wills and Michael Craze for the amazing job they did in bringing Ben and Polly to life, because they were two people that brought people back into Doctor Who. They also helped smooth over a transition in a like on a completely uncertain note. They helped smooth it over, and they helped carry on the show, and they helped facilitate a new companion coming in. So definitely the stories that we've recommended here, and even the ones that you might have liked that we would have scored very low, fuck it, check them out, because the more viewings of these stories and the more that they're talked about, the more likely it is that we will get animated versions of these stories.
Yeah, like we each had one story of Ben and Polly's that we scored a 2.
Yeah.
Okay. They were different stories. Yours is Faceless Ones, mine was Underwater Menace.
Mm-hmm.
You had 2 stories that you gave a 2.5, and I had one that I gave a 2.75. Everything else has been 3.5, 4s. They're such good stories. Like 3.75s. Like, they're so good. And I would reiterate what Paddy said. Like, you know, Ben and Polly restored my faith in what Classic Who became after what I considered my golden age. Right? Yeah. You know? They really, you know, and it's down to Annika and Michael. And, you know, like I said, Annika, if you're ever listening, thank you so much for everything that you've done for Who and for the character. Like I said, like, she continues to do stuff for Big Finish, and she's so involved. And I regret that Michael, same as I regret that Jacqueline Hill couldn't have been on Big Finish stuff. Michael couldn't either. And that really sucks.
Yeah.
Because their characters were so amazing. And I will say right now, if I do ever have the honour of meeting Peter Purvis, I will apologise to him in person for shitting on his character so much. But yeah.
If you ever meet Steven Tyler in real life, though.
Oh yeah, if I ever meet Steven Tyler in real life, I'm drop kick him down a flight of stairs.
Right. Sorry, Steven Taylor. Steven Tyler's like, no, we won't do that to Steven Tyler.
Not Steven Tyler. That's a different person. Oh, it's late and I'm sleepy.
Yeah.
My brain is ceasing to function.
Dream on this motherfucker.
On that note, guys, Paddy, it's been great going through these characters with you. Again, I think we've gone on longer than we probably planned on doing, but that's the whole point of a rambling.
Yeah, ramblings were meant to be like what was it, like less than an hour.
Yeah. But hey, our normal episodes are meant to be an hour, and they've been like 2 hours plus. We'll be back on Monday with our first story without Ben and Polly, which is going to be The Evil of the Daleks, which is also the final story of season 3.
4.
Yeah, no, I read that wrong. I'm really tired. Final story of season 4. You can tell I went back to work this week.
Yep.
The final story of season 4, and we'll see how did the season compare to previous seasons, because so far, other than one hiccup episode each, it's been going fairly solid.
Yeah. You know, it's been going. I think this is probably the most solid season we've seen since season 2.
Yeah, I'd agree. So we will talk to you on Monday.
Bye, guys.
Bye.